All right, we're back for another edition of the Astro Weather. I am your Astro Weatherman, Robert Phoenix, and wherever you are in this experience we call life, I hope your time is many things, but mostly whatever you want it to be. How about that? I'm leaving it up to you. So before I start with any of the heavy stuff today, we got a shout out. We got a birthday shout out. It's going out to Axel the History Kid, who was a guest on the Friday Forecast last year. And today, Axel is going to celebrate his birthday by guess what? Swimming with the dolphins. Apparently, they've got a dolphin swim thing at the aquatic park. What do you call it? I forget the name of it now. In San Antonio, SeaWorld. Yeah, they have a SeaWorld in San Antonio. So he's going to spend his birthday hanging out with some dolphins. So happy birthday, Axel, and I hope you enjoy the heck out of this day and get the vibe with your astrological brethren, the dolphins. So to everybody else, well, happy birthday to you. Every day is a birthday, isn't it? You get to wake up. It's another day because sometimes that doesn't happen. Every now and then, every now and then, somebody doesn't wake up, or or we find out that they didn't wake up that day. So give thanks for the day that you're participating in. And I just want to tell you all that I appreciate all of you and all of your support and uh, hitting the like and subscribing and all the things that as good YouTube netizens that we need to do to keep the algorithm alive. And also, if you feel so inclined, you can buy me a cup of coffee. And for everybody who's bought me a coffee or a variation of a coffee, I want to say thank you as well. I can't always get to you each and every one of you individually, but I really appreciate it, and particularly because this channel has been demonetized a long time ago. And I just made the connection. I think that the tamping down of views and subscribers is connected to demonetization. Because if you are not demonetized, of course, YouTube, I think, wants to promote you so that they can have bigger numbers and therefore they can attract more sponsors, right? I don't know. Maybe they can still get sponsors off my shit with me being demonetized, and perhaps I'm even a bang for the buck. Who knows? Anyway, let's get into the weather. We have a lot to cover today, and we are just guess what? We are just a little little over a month from the eclipse. The eclipse is looming large, and we keep getting these reports from cities and towns across America that they're shutting down that day. Like they're telling people to stay inside. Like this is fucking crazy. This is I mean, look, I think the eclipse is a big deal. And we didn't talk about it on Sunday night, but we're going to talk about it this Sunday night and how all these planets are in alignment during the eclipse as well, right? It's just like they're like a string of pearls on on a cosmic filament, right? And so you have not just the eclipse, but you have all these planets kind of lining up in unison, firing off one another. And then we also have a comet that is coming in not long after the eclipse. So um, the spring of 2024 promises to be an epic celestial time. And I do my best not to be a doom and gloom guy, okay? But this eclipse is, I think, gonna be a motherfucker on so many levels. Now, then the question is, can it be good? Can it be good? Well, here's what I think. I think if you are not prepared, you will quickly get the message that you need to get your shit together pretty quickly. That's what I think. That's the good that will come out of it. I'm actually speaking at an event. Uh, I think the day before the eclipse here in the Hill Country, and I'll throw a link. I know there's a link to it somewhere. I'm terrible at some of this shit, but it's this 3-day event in the Hill Country, and it's being produced by two of my friends, um, Shannon and Russell, and so they're going for it. They're going for the whole 3-day event thing with lots of guest speakers, um, yoga, meditation, show up as your archetype dance party stuff. And so that's going on. And I think there's another event happening like what, like in Bastrop. I think David's going to be at that one. So there clearly are things that you can plug into here in Kerrville. Of course, we have the Stonehenge of the Hill Country, and they'll be having some kind of an event there. I'm happy to speak the day before, the day of the eclipse. I really don't want to participate in anything drastically public. That's just my choice. But we're coming into it now. We are coming into the shoot. We got a big super moon coming too as well. So I think that super moon is what going to be. So the next full moon that we're going to get is going to be in Libra, and that's going to be the super moon because then it's going to whip around and come back for the eclipse on the 8th. So we've got so the super moons theoretically are when the moon is incredibly close to the Earth, right? That's the whole idea behind. So we have a super moon coming in right before the eclipse, and we're just going to start to track this stuff now. We're on the eclipse counter. Um, we are less than a month away. I said a little over a month. It's the morning, and I'm waking up. It's less than a month. Hold on, where are we? The 6th? No, a little over a month. My bad. Sorry. But math in the morning is not my strong suit. Sometimes I wonder how I get through these weather reports in the morning, but I do. I do. It must be my angels. Let's see. What are we going to do here? Let's do a little weather. Let's do a little weather. Let's do a little weather. Here we go. All right. So yesterday on Twitter, I made a post, and I've been trying to go about this with kid gloves because once you get into this territory, it can evoke an extreme amount of fear. And I'm talking about the Venus Mars conjunction squaring off against Jupiter and Uranus. So I put a post up on Twitter yesterday that really what we're seeing now is the beginning stages of cyber war, which I'm going to talk about on 15 Minutes of Flame. And you can find that link in the show notes for today. And maybe Tom or Ryan or one of the super mods can put that link in the chat. And that's kind of where we are, right? Like Mars is all about aggression and conflict and confrontation and war, and it's squaring off against Uranus, which is, again, the ruler of Aquarius. And, I think we might have some strange mutual reception going on, right? Like, Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, but it's in Taurus, and Venus is the ruler of Taurus, but it's in Aquarius. So we have a strange kind of mutual reception there. And I found out that there was a company that got blackmailed, um, with this whole cyber thing. And, and when you look at that Venus-Mars square, um, the Venus-Mars conjunction, and then the square to Jupiter-Pluto, Jupiter-Uranus, it's like, of course, of course. So let me see if I can do this. I wanna find the company. To do that, I gotta go into let me go into Twitter here really quickly, and I'm gonna show you, by the way, this website I'm about to show you is a really good resource if you wanna stay on top of the cyber stuff. And, this is a website called Cybersecurity Daily, so you can get an update. And let me just show you this to you really quickly. And so, who's hacked, latest data breaches and cyber attacks. So yesterday, the city of Hamilton, Ontario, got shut down. And then, but this is the story. You can see like everything that's happening here. You had a casino that had a cyber attack after widespread outage of its IT network. You had hackers stole sensitive data from Taiwan telecom giant Ministry. Golden Corral got hacked, 180,000 plus users' data stolen. You know, when they say data stolen, that means credit cards, by the way. Um, Top 10 U.S. mortgage lender, Fairway Independent, cyber. And this is all recent, right? This is all like 229. So we're talking really the last week. But the one that really um is the big one is where is it? This one right here. US health tech giant Change Healthcare hit by cyber attack. They were actually held ransom. They were held ransom for $22 million. Their entire their entire system got shut down. Patient records, everything got shut down. And they were held ransom, and they had to pay the damn ransom in order to get their systems back online. So this is what I'm talking about. Whoops, right here. This is what I'm talking about. So even with Venus, right? It's like Venus is the negotiating point. Okay, well here's what'll happen if you want to get your systems back online. You're going to have to pay us Venus square Jupiter. So this is just the beginning. You know, this is sort of signaling what's coming. And some of this will have a cumulative effect. So if you have one business or one group that is being attacked, and if they have nodal connections with other groups, businesses, or services, there's a good chance that those businesses, groups, and services can be affected as well. It's, everything about cyber world um, is a mirror of the human body. It's a mirror of the human body. So if you have connections with other people at times, right? And you're going through something, and I know that there's a lot of controversy about germ theory. Um, but you can affect and infect other people. And when I say affect, if you are again, if you're really negative and cynical and down, right, you will affect other people. They don't want to be around you. If you're positive and loving and you have a good spirit, people want to be around you, right? So it's a very fundamental kind of demonstration of how we're connected. Well, companies are connected as well, and so when they get into one of these corporations and they have partners and their partners share networks. I mean, this thing is like, you know what else it's like? I'll use another analogy here. It's like turbo cancer because that's what we're experiencing theoretically, or some people are experiencing that, this turbo cancer. You know, we just had Richard Lewis pass away, and Richard Lewis, who fucking looked terrible. I never saw any, Larry David kind of aged on um, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Richard Lewis really fucking aged. I mean, really, whether it was the fact maybe he should have continued to drink. Maybe that would have helped him a little bit more. Anyway, that's the turbo cancer is a good analogy because once they get into the systems, right, then they're partners, and they all have partners, and a lot of times they'll share networks. And there you go. There's pathways into these other parts. And so those partners have partners, and those partners have partners. So we have a domino effect. We find out that in again, like this metaphoric way, that they're all connected. Just like we're all connected. Right. So this is just the beginning of the crisis stage. And this can move into things like banking. Obviously, that's the big one, right? Banking's the big one, and let me zoom in here a little bit. So, Mars is just about to come into an exact square on, Uranus, so that'll be, what, 2 days from now? What's today's, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Of course, Friday is always a day where they have data dumps. So keep your eyes on the Mars-Uranus square going into the weekend. And keep an eye on your banking institutions. It feels to me like ultimately they're going to be the most vulnerable. And one of these days, I think we're all going to try to get on our ATM or check our balances, and they're not going to be. We won't be able to do that because of a cyber attack. The other thing too that's really interesting is the rise of the digital currencies, and we're on a major, major run right now. And usually when that happens, it's a pump and dump. And so if Bitcoin's like what, over 80 now? Is that where it is? It went from 40 to 80. I guarantee you there's going to be a steep, steep drop. And not just in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, the one that makes all boats rise. So something big is going on, and we can see this here in this fixed square in this arrangement that's happening. So keep your eye on Friday. The other thing too, and this is a big part of what I've been talking about on a personal level, is the shortness of dealing with people and just having like zero patience, zero patience, and it's a tough yoga of restraint here. But like I said yesterday, if you got to throw down and take the gloves off. Get your money's worth. And sometimes you just got to do it. I mean, that's just part of life, right? It's like, I've got 3 planets in Libra. Would I like everybody to kind of get along and be cool and chill out and, and find everybody else unique and interesting? Sure, I love that, but that doesn't always happen, right? It doesn't always happen. So there are times when we have to stand our ground, um, define boundaries, and when it's important to make sure that whoever we're dealing with understands the gravity of whatever it is that they're doing, right? Whatever it is that they're trying to, who was really good at this? My mother was good at this. When my mother got on the phone with customer service, she was relentless. I swear to fucking God, she was relentless. Now, she was kind of polite, kind of. And I would say 9 times out of 10, she got what she wanted. She was freaking relentless. So here we go, right? I'll give you another example of this in action. There's a video of Marjorie Taylor Greene just surfaced, and she's being asked about, some BBC reporter is being asked about Nikki Haley. Should Nikki Haley drop out? And Marjorie Taylor Greene says, yeah, I think she should drop out. Do you think President Trump will support her for vice president? No, I don't think so. He's got plenty of choices. Um, how would you feel about being President Trump's choice for vice president? Well, I'm just happy to serve our president because he is a Republican nominee. And then she lays in with, why is it that people that follow Donald Trump seem to be conspiracy theorists? Right. And then all of a sudden, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's a Gemini, flips the switch and says, you people that are the conspiracy theorists. You're the ones that are coming up with all the conspiracies, which to some extent, she's right. Right. Like January 6th, big conspiracy. And then the reporter comes in. Do you have any comments on Jewish lasers from space? And then Marjorie Taylor Greene lays into her and tells her to fuck off. There you go. There's your Venus-Mars conjunction, square Uranus in an interaction, right? It was Venus-like up to a point, and then the gloves came off and Mars kicked in. And so that's what we're talking about. It's amazing that we're having discussions about Jewish space lasers now. The Overton window has really moved, hasn't it? Anyway, so here we go. We're in this thing now. I mean, what do you do? Well, clearly, if you got crypto, you better have it on a little cold fusion storage thing. Most people will recommend that you have things like silver, gold, cash on hand. Probably better to have it than not. Just saying. Backup power systems if you have them. If you have them. And there are some that are better than others, clearly. It's never too late to make sure that you've got a month's worth of food or 2. I say 3. You should probably have about 3 months worth of food on hand. That's my kind of cutoff line. 3 months, you can kind of wait a few things out if you're lucky, right? So what can you do? This is theoretically now, if it all goes down, I mean, this is a completely different game, a completely different reality, a completely different paradigm. And we're probably not having these morning talks unless I have Starlink as a backup, because fucking Musk will come in and say, well, I've got internet. We have Starlink. We have no problem here, right? That's, I mean, even though it runs on the same networks, theoretically, the idea would be that Starlink would be that connectivity. I think it was Sam Tripoli who said that everything would get shut down. Musk would have Starlink. He'd save the day, and then he'd become the great hero and step into the role of the Antichrist. I don't know if that really is going to be enough to do that, but I could easily see Musk coming in with Starlink and saying, "Well, we've got this." And it was like yesterday. Facebook was down, IG was down, but Twitter was not down. So who knows? Maybe you want to invest in Starlink. And what is it, like $189 a month or something like that? So this is really the kind of the major friction and tension point right now. And again, there's that website, and as of today, there was another issue with a Canadian company down, and so we're in it, right? We're in it. I'm going to get more. So I have some ideas and theories about this, which I will talk more about on 15 Minutes of Flame. Link in the show notes and hopefully in chat. All right, let's talk about the moon. It always feels like we're having this conversation about the moon getting ready to move into this balsamic phase. And it just feels like oh, here we go, balsamic moon phase again. But it's back, right? It's back. And we're at the latter degrees of Capricorn. Now, by tomorrow, this moon is going to begin its transit into Aquarius, where it's going to be fucking kooky. Like, this is going to be a kooky moon. And we have this moon conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius, and that gets right into the banking shit, right? Right into the banking shit. And other people's money. When you get into, and we talked about this a couple of days ago, when you get into Moon Pluto conjunctions, you deal with things like mass hysteria. That's what the moon does, right? The moon is sort of the augur for public reaction, and it's all emotional, right? The moon is emotional. That's how we get programmed. It's through the moon. And I did an interview with James Bartley, which should be up pretty soon. And we talk about the moon and how the moon does play a role in programming the masses. And it gets back to Edward Bernays, who always returned to the symbol of the egg, because he thought that the symbol of the egg was the symbol of life. And if you could use the egg somehow in promoting an idea, that it would be very effective, especially with women, right? And when we think of the moon, we think of cycles, we think of eggs. So the moon plays this really significant role in terms of the masses, right? So it's coming into this balsamic phase, but before it goes into really that Piscean deep balsamic, it's got to run this gauntlet through Aquarius, and it's fucking kooky. And I can easily see just people losing their shit with this Moon Pluto conjunction over some of the craziest fucking ideas. Because again, I love Aquarius. I love all signs. I truly do. You can't be an astrologer, and they're I feel like they're all my children. And Aquarius is my special child because Aquarius has special needs. No, I'm just kidding. But it's true though, right? Like it's just different. So the moon is running out of gas, and it's coming in, and it's going to start to hit all these Aquarian planets. It's going to come in and start to square off against Jupiter and Uranus. Again, I'm looking at things like banking, real estate, and the convergence between the two, mortgages. If you want to look at it again from a more collective level, the state of California is fast tracking homes for migrants, low interest loans for migrants to move them into homes immediately. Isn't that just peachy and democratic and so progressive and Aquarian? And how is that going to make other people feel not nice, not fun? I'm just wondering when there's going to be a major whiplash publicly against the migrant tide. I'm just wondering, at some point, it's going to happen, and it may happen sooner than later. It may happen with this transit um, through the moon. I'll tell you what. There's a very good chance it'll happen. It's with the eclipse. When you look at the U.S. chart, and it's the Sibley chart, the U.S. fourth house is dominated by Aries. And when you look at this whole idea of Aries in the fourth house, it typifies this idea of like manifest destiny, like the plains, pioneering, the pioneering spirit. This is what Aries does, right? It's a fourth house manifestation of Aries. And also, theoretically, uh, for a long time, Aries represented sort of the father as the patriarch and the male in the home and all that stuff, right? And the United States has Chiron in Aries in its natal chart. So it also represents the wounded father or the wounded male. And that's a whole different topic of discussion. But I could easily see this eclipse really triggering this backlash, this whiplash around the so-called the undocumented visitors from another land. So we'll have more of a talk tomorrow about this lunar transit running the gauntlet. And man, if you think things have been fractious, wait till this moon comes in and starts to conjunct Mars and conjunct Venus and squares off against Uranus. Oh boy. Tempers are fast and furious. Fast and furious. Okay. Let's talk about some of the good stuff. Let's drop into all the lovely Pisces. All the lovely Pisces in the chart. It's actually quite nice. And if you're a Pisces and this is your birthday season, it's a good time of year for you. Now, a lot of Pisces are going through this Saturn conjunction around their sun sign. So if you're a Pisces, you're getting reshaped. You're looking at you know you're looking at who you've been for the last 30 years. And at 10 degrees, it's already touched early degree Pisces. If you're looking at anywhere between 10 and 19 degrees this year, it's going to hit your sun sign. So all Pisces are going through this cyclical change. And depending on where you are in that 30-year cycle, you're going to experience it differently. But that's the way these Saturn transits work. They reshape you, and you're supposed to shed the weight and the experience of the last 30 years so that you can get reset. But but those things happen every 30 years, so they're not you can experience it. Like, I think the last time I had a Saturn Sun conjunction, I was in my 50s. See, how old was I? Wasn't even 50. I think it was around 40 49. Right. So the next Saturn Sun conjunction I'm going to have is when I'm 79. So it's going to be very different. I can guarantee you that. Right. So you got to figure out where you are in that mix. Now, if you're younger and you get that Saturn conjunction on your sun, it's like, okay, well, what I've been doing for the last generally 30 years, right, 29 years, is kind of over. So I need to refine my approach to life. And sometimes when you have that Saturn Sun conjunction, you can be frozen for a while. And because you're reformatting everything. So that's marked. There's a lot of action here for Pisces with Saturn. So if you're a Pisces, just keep that in mind. For you Virgo people, of course, you have the Saturn opposition going on. And, I mean, just for astrological facts, My mother passed away when Saturn was opposing Pluto in my chart. There's astrology for you, right? So, but I do think, I mean, besides the sort of the larger Piscean picture here, I do think that we have an opportunity. Again, I'm going to stress this. We do have an opportunity to flow into situations. I keep coming back that there's a choice here. There's a choice. Now, again, there are times when you're just going to have to take the damn gloves off and bare knuckle it, right? But there's also a different choice, which is flowing into a situation that is easier. This is difficult and this is easy. And sometimes people, we live, we live in an interesting and weird culture, obviously. And there are times when the hard path and the hard route is the one to take. You have to take it because if you don't take it, you're not going to learn the life lesson. You're not going to understand how something is sweet unless you taste what's bitter, right? You're not going to understand something that's beautiful unless you experience what's ugly or brutal, right? So sometimes you have to go that path. But it doesn't mean you have to go that path all the time. There are other times when through the agency of grace you can flow into something, and if you have conscious awareness around it and you're grateful and you have gratitude, it's not such a bad thing. So and it's weird too, right? Because our culture promotes these extremes in a lot of ways. Well, if it doesn't hurt, you're not going to get it. Ain't no gain. There's some truth to that. And then on the other side, you get, well, I can create my own reality. And my own reality is nothing but beauty and harmony. And all the people that show up in my life are beautiful and harmonious. And money flows between me and everyone else. And the universe is such an abundance machine that, all I have to do is just welcome it into my life. And there's some truth to that as well. I mean, and we live in this culture where we get these almost caricature like extremes around it, but it's part of who we are in a lot of ways. So this to me demonstrates, and you may be going through the tough part right now, and that's okay, right? You may be going through the tough part. Like my son is going through the tough part. Like, he had his first breakup, his first heartache, and it's really, really hard for him. He's a 2-4 emotional projector Pisces. But I can see beneath that and how it's building him, right? Like he has to go through this in some ways. Oh, by the way, he does have Mars in Taurus, so in Venus and Taurus. So he's going through these hard squares, right? But every now and then there's alleviation. Every now and then there's the ability to um, step out of the hard zone. And sometimes the universe will provide those kinds of experiences for us. I'm running long today on this. But I think this is really the story of Astro Weather for today, right? Like what's happening, and we're all bound to experience this at some point. And I do believe that we're headed into a cyber war. We're there. And we're there. And I don't think it's just all of a sudden, oh, we've got all the stopgaps, we've plugged up the back end and all the networks are safe. Don't count on it. Don't count on it. At the meantime, it's like you can only control what you can control and have some faith that things will work out the way they need to. What's the old Sufi maxim? Tether your camel first and then trust in God. That's the ultimate, I think, takeaway from today's Astro Weather. Okay, let's talk about our True Hemp Science star of the day. And let's do a little banner action. Here we go. Our buddy Chris is still celebrating his birthday. It's his birthday week, just like Dr. Joan, who overindulged a bit yesterday on her birthday. But that's okay. It's a birthday week. You get to do it, right? Why not? Anyway, if you go to truehempscience.com, you will find a variety of some of the best CBD products that are available over the internet. Of course, if you're in Austin, you can always stop by Chris's shop, pay him a visit, say hi, and purchase some CBD. But if you go online and you purchase $100 or more, just type in here. Let's do this. Share this tab right here. We'll bring up our star of the day. You can just type in 15MINS on checkout, and you get a free goodie bag. And I guarantee you're going to get some nice little goodies and treats inside that goodie bag. $150 or more, get you free shipping, always a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you are helping a Main Street business with some of the best organically sourced CBD that you can find. Here's our star of the day. There he is, Michelangelo. And we actually have a birth time for Michelangelo. Can you believe that? AA rodent rating. You know, there's some other people today that were kind of interesting, but you know, it doesn't get much more. Like this guy is iconic, or I wouldn't call him archetypal because he was an odd fellow, Michelangelo. He was a very odd fellow, but he's immortal. That's why we're talking about him today. He's immortal. His art is immortal. And again, you know, how he did the art and all the things that go along with that. And now we're into discussions about Tartaria and, you know, different types of technologies, which we'll save for another day. But his art is immortal. And as a result of that, Michelangelo is immortal. So what are we looking at in his chart? Well, he's got a grand trine in water. He's got a grand water trine in a kite pattern. So this guy is an artist. He's an artist. When you got all that Pisces in your chart, you're an artist. Sun Mars conjunction. He also has moon in Pisces, and it's a balsamic moon. And I think that it's a really interesting placement for the moon. Very interesting. And we're gonna talk a little bit about Michelangelo's sexuality in this segment here. But you can kind of see how it works, right? Like, again, we're going to use the classical model of Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel. Okay. Up there, right? And you can see Sun Mars, which is the activity part of the chart, and Pluto, which is the highest planet, right? Up at the top, the dome. So you can see the opposition. You can see just there's a verticality to the creation. Now, of course, he was a sculptor and he did other things as well, right? So it's not just based on that. But Pluto is the highest planet in his chart, and it's in Virgo. He was Jen Jones. Michelangelo was Jen Jones. And so he's driven by perfection. Right? That's the whole thing that's driving Michelangelo is perfection. Striving for perfection so that he could please God. We think. He's actually also pleasing his benefactors. And you can see the benefactor part with Jupiter here in the second house. That's how he made his money. You know, whether it was the church or the Medicis or whomever, right? He made his money. Jupiter, Aquarius, second house. And he has Venus squaring Jupiter. Now, the weird thing about, okay, we're going to get into his sexuality a little bit here. Look, artistically, the guy is just, he is a freaking flow master, right? Neptune, Uranus, Mars, Sun, just flowing in there, right? Flow, flow, flow. It reaches the apex of the chart with the top of the kite, and Pluto. And Pluto is the recipient of all this creative energy that Michelangelo through the chart is blessed with. When you want to look at the chart of a master artist, this is it right here. Pisces being, I think, the most creative sign, and Mars being driven, and he's got it in spades. Not only that, but we look at the midheaven ruled by Venus and the true node here, right? There's his true node. So he is aspiring towards beauty. He's aspiring towards art. And when we think of Libra, we think of things like symmetry and form and balance and proportion and all the stuff that Michelangelo is known for. May have been, again, theoretically, the greatest artist of all time. He's immortal. You know, if somebody was sarcastic, they would say, well, who do you think you are? Some fucking Michelangelo? Right? They don't say, who do you think you are? Some fucking Andy Warhol? No, it's Michelangelo. The guy set the standard. He is the archetype of the artist. Maybe somewhere down the line you got, I don't know, Rembrandt, Picasso. You know, if you wanted to go hierarchical, Michelangelo is at the top. He is literally at the top of the pyramid, right? So I was looking at his chart last night, and I saw that Venus square to Saturn in the seventh house. I'm like, man, this guy didn't have many relationships, did he? And I think his relationships with women were not very common, if at all. And then I started to look at his chart. I'm like, is Michelangelo queer? And then I started digging around, and clearly that's the case, right? He would seduce theoretically. Like there are letters and love poems to his models, right? And he would fall in love with them and he would seduce them. And you can kind of see this here, you know, with Sun, Mars, third house. Mars in the third house is a little kinky. You know what else I found out? Going down the rabbit hole with Michelangelo, that a lot of these guys, these, you know, masters of the Renaissance, they all did time for sodomy. I didn't realize that. Like they were all charged at some point with sodomy, including what's his name? Divine Man, Da Vinci. They all did jail time for sodomy. Now, I don't know if Michelangelo did jail time for sodomy, but this is what was happening then. And Mars in the third house is kind of kinky. It just is. And he also has this interesting South Node Venus conjunction in Aries, right? Which is men. Right? Aries is men. It's male energy. It's Venus in Aries. He's got that South Node there. And he's either going to be engaged with dominant women or relationships with men. Not that it matters. Doesn't really matter. But you can see it in his chart. Because I was like, man, this guy didn't have very many relations with women. So he must have a relation with men. And then he's got that Sun Mars conjunction in the third house. And then there's again, if you want to just put this in a personal placement with Pluto in the opposition, I think he was at times racked by guilt. You know, with Pluto and Virgo, racked by guilt. You know, it was like one of those things. Like, you know, it's like, oh, this is really pleasurable, but man, do I feel fucking maybe everything that he did was in some ways powered by guilt. That he was an apologist for his own shortcomings. And by doing all these things for the glory of God, that somehow God would forgive his errant ways. I don't know, but it's an interesting thing to think about with Michelangelo. So extremely talented, extremely gifted artist. You can just see it in the chart. It's right there. It's all there. And he's got Mercury in Aquarius. He's ahead of his time. He's literally ahead of his time in terms of technique, production, the whole nine. He also had foot problems, I found out, which is again indicative of Pisces. It had something to do with how he was positioned a lot of the time with his feet. Here's your True Hemp Science star of the day, Michelangelo. All right. So there we go. Another Astro Weather in the books. I want to thank everybody for being here, and I hope you have a fantastic time with the rest of your day and the rest of your night and the rest of your afternoon, wherever you are. And remember, there are many roads and paths to take in life. And today, you might be asked to choose one, or you may ask somebody else to choose one. But remember, wherever you are, you're already there. Bye for now.